Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Colonel Christopher McDougall. We warmly welcome Mr. Lloyd Birdsall, an Australian Army veteran who served with the 14th Field Regiment Signals Section during the Second World War. We thank you for your service. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial, as well as students on behalf of the following schools. From Victoria, Kangaroo Ground Primary School. From Western Australia, Frederick Irwin Anglican School, Mandurah. And from New South Wales, Charlton Christian College from Fassifern. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you, students. You may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Colin William Bolitho. Colin Bolitho was born around 1897, the only child of William and Selina Bolitho of Victoria. He spent his early years in Kyneton, but as a young boy moved to Sale, where his father engaged in the wheelwright and coach building trade. Colin was educated at the local state school and went on to further training as a mechanical draftsman. After completing his education, he went to work with his father and, it was said, gave great promise of a successful career. Colin was an active participant in the temperance movement, being a member of the local Rechabite tent. It was reported that when he left Sale, he was occupying the important office of Levite to that body, discharging his duties in a very creditable manner, and in a very short time he would have filled the highest office in the lodge. Instead, Colin Bolitho enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at the age of 18, leaving Sale with the permission of both of his parents. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas in November 1915 with reinforcements to the 24th Battalion. His last words to his father before sailing were, "I will do my duty." Private Bolitho was first sent to Egypt, where the AIF was undergoing a period of expansion and reorganisation. As part of that process, he was transferred to the 8th Battalion, and by early April 1916 was in France, preparing to fight on the Western Front. The 8th Battalion's first major action in France took place in late July 1916 at the French village of Pozières. The village itself was captured by other Australian battalions, but the 8th was soon called forward to reinforce the dangerous position. On the 28th of July 1916, the 8th Battalion was in the front line at Pozières under constant heavy artillery bombardment. Private Bolitho was trying to get into a trench to join some other members of his battalion when he was shot in the wrist and abdomen. He made it to the relative safety of the trench, where his comrades bandaged his wounds and applied basic first aid. However, with the ongoing artillery fire, there was no safe way to evacuate him for further assistance. A fellow serviceman later wrote, "Like the hero he was, he lay there for about 10 hours, and not a word of reproach or no crying out in pain came from him, because I think he knew the boys had too much to do. They only had 5 men to look after 50 yards of trench, and so he did not ask for any assistance." After hours of quietly bleeding from his stomach wound, Private Colin Bolitho died in the trench. He was 19. Although there were reports that Colin's body was eventually removed from the battlefield and buried, his grave could not be located after the war, and today he is commemorated on the Australian Memorial at Villa Bretonneux. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his name, listed on the Australian Memorial at Villa Bretonneux, is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of sacrifice and service told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Colin William Bolitho, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.